Хорошо.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me well? Let me begin. We are opening the session devoted to production program and cooperation management within the digital manufacturing track. It's no secret that one of the main objectives, and probably the most significant objective for the Russian economy, is improving the production potential and industrial growth. And to solve this task, various tools are being used. One of important tools is moving to end-to-end process management and management of cooperation manufacturing. What are the goals and objectives of shifting to this kind of manufacturing when we are not using a full cycle company to make a product, but when dozens or hundreds or even thousands of vendors like innovation or shipbuilding are involved in the end product manufacturing? What do we need to do? What solves do we task? What are the limitations? What can we overcome and what we cannot? These are the topics that we will try to discuss nowadays, and I give the floor for the greeting to Mr. Bocharov, Oleg Bocharov, Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation. You are welcome. Thank you very much. Fortunately, I've got my voice back after supporting the Russian football team. A greeting sounds a bit silly in this environment, as if I was a formal figure. Of course, I do greet you all, but I would like to move straight to the topic, because large events are sometimes featuring advertising that's dominating over the content. So I would like to ask you all to provide as much content as possible and be brief. I will start with myself. The product, unfortunately, the product that we are seeing from Russian companies, I have Anton sitting next to me, and we've been arguing for a couple of years now, and I think it's a very correct argument. Stop promoting. Let us start developing. Stop saying about what kind of quality we are going to have. Let's get product quality now. Stop enforcing. Let us manufacture a product that will be sought after. That's all. And please now tell us how we can do that. Thank you. Thank you, Oleg. And the first speech in our session is a speech by Vladimir Dozhdov, acting Director of Department. Are you sure he should be doing a speech? The department has been around for half a year, and I'm sure that Vadim used to be the most famous Moscow lawyer, and when I was in a team with him, we developed a system that involved investment for the technical park creation. Let me argue. If you will allow me, because when he's raising his eyebrows, I realized that the speech was not agreed upon with him. But he cannot speak for formality's sake. So maybe we should move from the companies, from solving problems and overcoming barriers, and then we will all ask Mr. Dozhdov, because after he's been in the aviation department, he will be able to answer our questions. Last year, he submitted a digital manufacturing program to the government. So how does he see our cooperation and support? Accepted, Oleg. Thank you. Then the first introductory speech is going to Anton Malkov, a member of the board at Galactica. Thanks heaven, it's all right now.
Happy to greet you at our meeting, which is devoted to the problems of management of cooperation programs. I would like to emphasize that an important element of Industry 4.0 is digitalization and integration of horizontal and vertical value chains, from the development of a product up to its following servicing. We can see that digitalization has to cover both the industry level and go down to the technological working place and embrace all the stages of life cycle of a product. And let me announce and understand of the Ministry of Industry and Trade. The concept of Industry 4.0 is represented, where our products are also presented, and I invite you to visit this stand. And next to it, there is our stand as well, where we can tell you in more detail about the solutions we suggest. So the task is to organize a digital cooperation of all participants of the process, from the customers to the final assembly companies, to cooperation of the shop and the working place. This task may be solved due to the implementation of certain industry services on the industrial companies. What are the key services as we see them, which may solve this problem? First of all, we would like to have a chance to consolidate the order for the domestic products, machine building products. This is a task which we can cope with, and in the framework of conversion and diversification of the defense industry, where the main production facilities are centralized today, and the opportunity of funding by the Ministry of Finance, we can accumulate the requirement, the demand for these civil products, and the companies of engineering will be able to understand where they can go, where they can develop, and which products they have to develop and implement. But first, we will need to understand what will be the value chain and what companies will be able to fulfill certain requirements for the production. And there is the necessity of the service of subcontracting and cooperation, which will let solving this problem. And apart from it, we will need a trade platform and the technology of capacities. And the essence of this service is that as soon as the capacities are there, mostly within the defense sector, this information is closed. And how, in which way, can we open these capacities without opening the state secrets? Here, we will need to form a service, the stock exchange of technologies and of industrial capacities, which will need some requirements in the beginning, at the entrance, and provide the information to the defense companies on the requirements, on the demands existing there today. Certainly, all these technologies are not possible without modern, without contemporary tools, without cloud industry, cloud solutions and other capacities which are provided by Industry 4.0. Apart from that, we certainly need to implement digitalization within the companies themselves, beginning from the strategic management, decentralization, which will be the solution of the tasks the same way as shareholders go away from centralization of the holdings within the contracts on final products. And there is a task also of digitalization. There is a need for digitalization through the whole company, beginning from the management of the production on the shop level. Certainly, the digitalization has to embrace everything up to the shop level, up to the technological working places. There are these technologies already there. In Russia as well, we will be pleased to present these technologies to you at our stand, and it's very simple. In fact, the operators at workplaces may have on their screen in front of them an assignment, and the data center has to process this, and the process of readjustment of this equipment should be carried out, and thus we will be able to provide the complete digital cooperation. Let me some advertisements here on this stage. Here on this slide, you can see the full life cycle of a product and the solutions Galactica solves this cycle. Down on the slide, you can see the companies taking part in solutions. And these solutions are now implemented already, and we, as domestic developer, we are receiving some experience in this, acquiring some experience in this. And I would like to emphasize the trends existing in the domestic and mechanical engineering nowadays. We have identified the following specific features. Certainly, the companies are nowadays unified by the state corporations, and they get the main orders from the government. Then on the level of the holding, there is a necessity of through management. And there is another specific feature. The state corporation, they tend towards the internal cooperation and increasing their capacities inside the holdings. They, without an opportunity of getting the information on available capacities in other holdings, there in fact happens the following. They create excessive capacities here in the country. We would like to avoid this. And in this relation, there is a need for such instruments which allow us to manage technical potential, which could solve the following tasks: managing the contracts and projects, building the schemes of corporation division, internal and external ones, also calculation of the needs, the necessity in production capacities, optimization of these cooperation chains, balancing of a through program on all net of cooperation, and also the technical re-equipment control, taking into account the existing and load of existing capacities. Our team has also worked through the key effects of using such instruments. Let me read them. A lot of work has been done, and I would like not to miss a single phrase out of this. We see the key effects for the state, for the government on this basis. The transition, first of all, to the new industrial model, from increase of the effectiveness of technical potential, the reduction of the volumes of re-equipment, production capacities, Yeah, and finally, diversification of the defense industry companies without the damage towards the military orders. For the head companies, it will allow to control and manage the process of these processes and provide the access towards the national stock exchange of technological capacities of other companies, of private companies, of the companies of other holdings, building up the chains, optimal chains of cooperation for new products and also on current products which are being produced by the companies. Also increase of competitiveness on the internal and external markets, also following of the through put of all the components and the reduction of risks of failure of contracts fulfillment. And also controlling the deviations in the cooperation network. This will bring the better effect for our customers, because our customers are the main players here, because they pay money. So when we are able to organize one single digital space where the customers are also participate, it will reduce the time for the customers, also for development of their orders, and the giant networks which exist within single companies may be optimized later, and it will also help to reduce the prices and the procedures of selection of suppliers, vendors. And in the end, it will also improve the quality. I would like to finalize my presentation by the following infographics. We can see here that if we solve the task of management of the programs and cooperation on the state military orders and cooperation within this area, and organize the control of fulfillment of these throughput programs based on the informational scheme of cooperation, which is already there. Also adding to this task an opportunity of exchange the capacities with other companies. It will, in the end, allow the companies go towards the flexible cooperation, which can be changed depending on the parameters of a certain order. In a summarizing, if a norm of cooperation, it will load our capacities of the companies of military sector, of defense sector. We also will be able to see the information about the free capacities on this sectors in this sector, and then we will fight the situation when the military order is being reduced, but we will be able to use the capacities for other needs due to diversification. It will certainly improve the whole operation of our industry throughout the country, and using these instruments will allow us to transfer to the new principles of digital production and introduce the private investments, and also provide the growth of production here in this country and transfer to the new industrial model. Thank you, and I would now like to give the floor to Denis Lamshev, who will in more detail show you our approaches.
Thank you, Anton. Good afternoon. Good afternoon once again, dear colleagues. let me, as the moderator for introduction to the topic and the expert in the subject matter, and I've been involved in production management for over 20 years, and over 10 years of this I have been working at a gas turbine engine manufacturer that's at a production venue. Let me tell you a little bit about our view by the Galactica Corporation about cooperation production and how it lets you organize the system of company management. I'm not sure I'm using this correctly. So the look at production processes management and digitization, I would like to break it down into three aspects. Firstly, it's managing company groups, holdings, corporations, concerns, and so on. It can be managing whole industries, so building a digital cooperation network. Secondly, it's building the digital enterprise itself and a digital workplace. There are numerous aspects and numerous issues associated with automation, digitization of production management, and I would emphasize two of them. The previous one has already been presented in the previous slide, the multi-level aspect of management. We must manage several levels at once. Accordingly, we have to have individual objects of control, and a system of sharing information must be created for the information to move up or down. And the second aspect is associated with the fact that besides production tasks and the production per se, we have processes like preparation, designing, engineering, production preparation, contracting, advance payments, and so on. It's no secret that many companies that manufacture final products, long-term, lengthy processes and complicated products, and the assembly of a certain stage of this product is cancelled because several months ago the vendor of our vendor did not get an advance payment and couldn't launch the certification procedure for new materials with the defense industry. And we only learn about it when the assembly did not receive the components made of these new materials that were not certified. So some of the final products manufacturers that assemble final products, they are responsible for the whole manufacturing cycle of complex goods, yet they can only control their own processes, or at best the processes of companies they have direct contracts with, or companies that are somehow in the same group and have the same mother company and are parts of the same holding. And as for third and fourth tier vendors, they cannot influence them, they cannot plan quickly, they cannot forecast what happens if. What if we get another order? What about our cooperation network that includes dozens of companies? So we transfer in terms of references and requests for changes to our vendors. They look at their own production capacities, assess them, and transfer the request to their vendors. So it all goes down the chain and then goes back up again for months and weeks of working through this what-if scenarios, and it's a lengthy cycle. So what do we propose? The system of cooperation management includes three items. Firstly, it's building the so-called resource model of cooperation network. When we assess every company by the types of resources they have, there is a certain technology for that. Secondly, description of a product and its content, not as a design, not from the design perspective, like components, parts, and assemblies and sub-assemblies, but from the point of view of assembling or purchasing different parts and assemblies and assessing the time and labor intensity for manufacturing and resource need for manufacturing these components and sub-assemblies in the same groups of resources that we have have already used to assess a company in this cooperation network. And thirdly, based on the first two aspects, if we get a new order for manufacturing a certain product, the system automatically creates a system of orders for all companies participating in this cooperation. We have this experience with NIEMASH for Roscosmos. We created a kind of a system where we tried to model the situation of about 40 companies cooperating on making two products. That's not a large network, and there were some presumptions, but we were able to model it, and we could move on and solve further tasks with our customers, ICRED, and we are also hoping to get some projects with the support of the Ministry of Industry and Trade to develop this solution and create a system of managing this kind of cooperation based on that. The point here is that this system does not replace the company's, each individual company's own production control system, but it links them into a single chain, and it creates the need for certain items, parts, components for every company participating in this chain, and it gets quick feedback on production capacities or lack thereof when we are making plans and schedules of our own manufacturing and manufacturing output. That's one of the limitations at the top. And when the decision was made and the contract has been signed, the system provides real-time mode monitoring for performance for all participants of the network. So time-wise, the head company monitors its own production and contracting processes. Then companies that are part of the holding are connected to the system, and companies that provide parts and components for the main company. And then more companies are connected from beyond the holding with whom we have contractual obligations. Then the second, the third company is connected, and so on. Eventually, we have a kind of digital model for the whole cooperation network within the holding or a certain industry. Naturally, there is a wide scope of issues here about data analytics and security of transmitted data, legislation, regulations, and so on. We invited experts who can discuss each of these issues in their subject matter, issues that can become limitations or, on the contrary, can help overcome these limitations. Let us skip the advertisement. One of the possible examples of building analytical reports based on this system, we have designed these three-level analytical reports where we have any contracts or orders that are assessed by 5 parameters: contracting, advance payments, and providing your own manufacturing with parts. At the second level, it's broken down into specific contracts signed and SKUs and so on. One more level below, and we see the status of each individual contract, whether it has been sent for approval or not. And it's not just between us as the main provider and our contractors. It's for the whole system, and we can get analytics, for example, which of the contractors didn't make an advance payment to their vendors, and we can ask them, you've got your advance payment, why didn't you pay your vendors? Or we can see if we're lagging behind in production preparation or manufacturing our own parts. So any kind of analytics in any cross-section is possible here. The second level is digitization of the company itself. If I unfortunately had to say about the previous one that we only had an experience of a small pilot project, and we are now working on 2 small contracts. But the second level, digital enterprise, we invited a representative of our contractor, deputy director of Energomash, who will talk about digitization of their company. And I will give you some more examples because we are working with Tupolev and radio electronics technologies concern. We have a number of companies in Novosibirsk, Ekaterinburg, and Moscow who are already working within this technology. And what I'm going to say now has been the foundation of a project solution on automating the monitoring and production control of Tupolev to recreate 2162 fighter plane. So, firstly, we create a portfolio of orders in the electronic form, what items are ordered and for what deadline. Then we are working on design engineering specifications and production cycles, and we create diagrams. Of course, I'm showing you the simplified kind here on the screen. They can be more complicated. Then we are creating bills of materials for parts we manufacture ourselves or purchase. If we manufacture the parts ourselves, then we create in-house cooperation chains, stage by stage, when every shop knows what product they must manufacture by what deadline, and move to the next shop. And a request for purchase materials and blanks are created for each shop, and there are certain purchasing cycles. We know the time it takes us to purchase materials, and we take it into account. We also include in cooperation management here. The head company includes orders for cooperation in this system, and then the whole cooperation chain is broken down. Eventually, it all boils down to this kind of closed loop system that consumes parts, blanks, and information like specifications and process descriptions, and then to the right it goes through the system, and at the outcome we have finished products and testing. Each task, each production order is handed over to the workplace. And before I start talking about the next level, the digital workplace, let me say a few words of advertising. The first known case in the Russian history when a significant, large defense company, one of Almaz-on-Tape plants, stopped using paper plans for their SKUs. They've had our system for several years, but they were still making plans for production plans for shops. And you know, it's the basis of all manufacturing. They report on them at the end of the month. And since they had about 5 million orders for different parts, and you can imagine the volume of paper plans created monthly. And this management system has another drawback. Besides wasting paper, it doesn't allow for quick changes. And as of February 1 this year, they stopped making paper production plans. They only make them in electronic form. They recalculate them at least once a week, and sometimes actually twice or 3 times a week. So every couple of days they recalculate the plans, and the system includes all the design engineering changes and so on. And the shops are working by new plans and new orders. So the system, this informational world, this digitization system is always up to date with the current situation. That was a small victory by one of our customers. And of course, their digital workplace is created as a work order, but then they are printed out for the sake of the signature. So digital workplace orders arrive from the top level. Each order for manufacturing a certain item or certain batch at the shop is created creates operation by operation schedule, and then we have tasks for making certain operations at workplaces. It can be achieved as a work order per shift, or they can use a tablet or computer terminal next to the workplace. So during the shift, especially if we have the digital electronic feedback, reporting on performing on these operations is created. This information comes up, the shift is closed, the information goes to the upper level system, the plan is recalculated, and we always have an up-to-date plan in the electronic form in the system. We always know what's happening in the production. And as we transfer this information at the first level, at the cooperation level, we achieve the following results. We can send to the upper level, as Anton Malkov said before me, at the level of assessing the production potential, we can send information upwards from the workplace, and we've already implemented it at a number of companies. I will skip the main results because Anton Malkov has already itemized them. That's all with my own report. Thank you for my attention, and I'm giving the floor for the next. Let me interrupt you. Have a rest. Colleagues.
Dear colleagues, it's interesting to understand those who we are talking with. Are you ready to raise your hands as potential clients for whom we are producing this? I'm focused on you then. Those who are producing products, please raise your hands. Okay, thank you. We have more of them. The potential customers are winning now, and the consulting companies, strange. And who are the rest ones? Those who have not raised before. Those who are too modest. What are you? You are smiling. Who are you? The girl. Well, you. Why haven't you raised your hand when on the second question? And those who are engineering companies, raise your hands. So, got it. Could you please tell me, I am addressing the producers now. You have seen an ideal picture now. Have you got a desire to buy it? After it's my question. It's an exchange of information. Please do not ask me a question. Just give me an answer. Thank you. Okay, we guess it now. Okay, the producers. Dennis, never a normal manager of the production would not buy it. For the rest, it's perfect. INNOPROM Torque has to implement it. Why do not they buy it? A kind of a lyrical part. How long England was fighting for not breaking steam machines? Well, you understand. Together with Anton, we were discussing this now, whispering, sitting here. I mentioned that, my question was, how do we make it a product which has not been enforced on people? And you are trying to enforce your developments. Once I was flying together with a billionaire who is involved in construction business, is making the whole company from byproducts. He has invented a production of blocks with unique heating qualities. Well, he cannot implement. He invests his own money. He sells the houses, builds himself. People do not want to buy it. Why do you think, Anton? Nobody can give an answer, but that guy gives me a simple answer. There is no well, the supervisor on the construction site, they are protesting this. And without this guy, nobody can sell it. All the companies are built now on the increase of costs and getting this quasi income from the state. But this cooperation is not transparent. And I also always have someone I will refer to when there is a failure. Those who went as students on the construction sites remember this very well. I have broken a pack of glass this money will be deducted from my salary. Well, I won't be able to pay for this. And no digitalization is going to be there when the product is not finalized. You have to make it profitable for the man on the construction site. When there is no agreement between the person on the working place, when he understands that his productivity will increase, it's not the function of the ministry. It's a business process. Why, as a minister, I have to manage the holding? I do not want to be involved in this. I have to think of the rules which will make this machine work. And so far, together with you, I have to put it into somebody's heads and advertise it. Well, Denis, how do we stop enforcing the products? Well, to make it simple, we need to have people who cannot survive without this product. Surviving is an issue of development. When the companies become more sustainable, well, when a person has no real argument, it gets emotional intellect involved. But it's not sufficient now. Our minister has just told to Mr. Rakhmanov, who had to answer him very, very strict, to be very strict with Mr. Rakhmanov. He says it's not my working place manager who will die if we do not implement it. It's me, Mr. Rakhmanov, who will die here. We are somehow enforcing all our technologies. And the minister was very, very clear. He says, everything depends on the personality of the company manager. But because for him, it is easier to agree with other managers of other companies. Well, he will not share his capacities. They are earning on each pipe, on each repair, and they are very, very they're very, very keen on earning on these repairs and everything. I thought that, well, you invited me just to hear, to listen to you here, and now I'm to work on your behalf for your holding, or what? Well, it's not going to be this way. It's not a production process. I can hear that, Anton, you having your emotional intellect, you are prepared to defend these guys. But, well, I'm now addressing to the potential customers. How do we stop enforcement? And the second question is related to quality of the product. Do you believe your product has a good quality? No, at this moment we don't have a product. We have an idea only, and we need to implement it. Everyone is now laughing. It's not. well, the product is not it's not an IT program only. It's also a management product. Everything which will increase the productivity. Do you have to tell something? You're welcome. As a head office from our suppliers, we are getting some information. Two questions appeared there. When Anton said, it will be done, it will be done. I can understand this because there are some people who enforce me their IT product and they ask me to pay first, and in 9 months they will offer me something. And here as well, you cannot see the transparency. Yesterday, when I was walking through this forum, I met a girl from Sberbank. She presented me the product, the ready product of a bank, business partner. Get registered and work. Why don't you do the same way? It's software. Well, he says, you are not underinvested. Offer me this product for free, first of all. Offer me a basis. I will get registered, and then maybe I will start paying for this. Let me have it for free. Why cannot you do this? Well, Oleg, I would like to correct our position here. We do not enforce anything. We do not bind it on you. Well, I'm trying to make our conversation more interesting, more active. Well, we are thankful to you for this format. It's very productive. Well, in order to create a product which would satisfy all the participants and get them interested, we need to implement a pilot implementation of this task, because this task, as you correctly mentioned, it's not just a software. Well, wait, you are not answering my question. Why is a pilot product not possible for free? Well, it is planned to implement it with the participation of the holding. Well, why cannot you offer these products for free for 5 customers sitting here? Free for whom? Well, you have the basis. You have some products you have implemented with some other companies. You can do it. Well, dear colleagues, we are developing the products together with our customers. If we did not do it, well, there was a specific question. There are 4 customers or 5. Please raise your hands again. Okay, 5 of them. They are prepared. They will invest certainly later. If they will install this software, they will give you the feedback, etc., etc. They will tell you what you have to change to adjust. Well, we are sincere. This is a governmental task to create this process, to get them automated and to get the effects expected. It's not a task of a specific holding even. Well, again, well, can you complain to the minister and I will get a strict task. Now I'm speaking about another thing. Unfortunately, I don't know your name. What hinders you to give this pilot program to specific 5 customers who are sitting here? Why are you making pictures? You have come here to communicate. I'm more interesting. Are you going to watch it later during the night time? Well, if needed, I will repeat it. What does not let us to discuss specific things now. Why don't you start to talk directly to those 5 customers who have come to listen to you, to Galactica? We have developed technical requirements for this system, which were sent out to the holdings, identified as pilot sites, and these technical requirements are in practice approved. And now, on this basis, we are going to start the mechanism and the research work, which, okay, let us approach from another side. Everyone has understood it. Okay. To those 5 customers, my question, let us start with that beautiful lady who is sitting behind the future reporter. What kind of product do you need? In fact, we are producing the cashier equipment. Well, we started the topic of digitalization, and we would like to MAS. We would like to adopt MAS system for our business. Do you have Galactica? Do you have this system? How much is it? Are you prepared to buy it? How much is it? Anton. We are a small business. If well, I warn you. Well, the region then has to help you. For these beautiful ladies, we always have discounts. I don't know what kind of question I will ask to the next producer. Well, we had some jokes and got relaxed, but I must apologize in front of Anton for the false words. Let us discuss this problem in its essence. Well, the corporations are not interested to send their information to their head office because they have their own costs and they are bargaining. It's not only related to Ante. We had a big retail chain as X5. Here they say, well, we invest $16 billion in our digital technologies, but we will not send the check we know to the channel system. And then a lady, a pensioner lady, she won't get a special discount for her independently on the store she enters. We won't get the final customer in the end, and this will not work for the final consumer. Then the whole chain won't work. Until we go through all these chains on the level of understanding to the final customer, all these chains, all these products will be enforced, and everything that is enforced is expensive. It's going to be broken by those people who we enforce it on, and they will want to prove you that you are fools, and they will buy a British one because, well, why they will buy a foreign make?
Not just that, Dassault is inferior to Sukhoi Superjet. Why? Because Dassault is bringing money, and they will fill the gaps with money and with benefit. And Anton told me that France is supporting them, so why don't you provide money? But it's not cost-effective. The third question is how to make our communication efficient in this system of digital manufacturing or digital transition. I don't know the answer. I can only start thinking about what is the barrier here. And Vladimir and I are going to tell you that, of course, we are introducing digital standards for companies. That's normal, and that's how it should be. Of course, if you haven't been at the Ministry of Industry and Trade stand and Galactica stand, come there and try purchasing two companies in several minutes, and which kind of state support to choose. I wasn't able to do it. I was defeated. Mr. Borovko, who is always talking about this digitization, lost to a girl and then to a boy yesterday. Oh no, sorry, it was 3 times losing to a boy. Anyway, and then he was telling me that in his mind this process was different. So it's very interesting for us to get an actual simulation, even if it's shaped like a game, and to see how investment is are distributed fairly. The government doesn't want to pay for Galactica's losses, and Galactica doesn't want to incur all the costs of this cooperation. The poor dying holding doesn't want to fail the government time and again in all the orders and then pay the fines and penalties and interest rates. Banks are the only ones who are winning in all situations. So you're right. Sberbank has all the solutions. Welcome, come to us, electronic partnership, and then we will use your money and your accounts, and this is a powerful structure, by the way, and Mr. Gref is a powerful organizer, and competing with an organizer like Sberbank is a pure pleasure, because either you have to die, it's a famous story, the companies should be dying, then they will queue to the banks. Anyway, enough digressions. Providing a return on investment for a company is the main goal, what we were supposed to do. It says defense industry companies, but I think all companies should improve their efficiency, and we need to utilize underutilized capacities. Is this a problem? Of course it is, but the source is the salary of a specific manufacturer. We need to set clear and easy to understand efficiency performance indicators, and shop supervisor must know what is currently manufactured at the high-tech equipment, because company's director is making money on the holding, while shop supervisor makes money on the company manager, and it's not always known what this expensive milling machine is processing right now. If this program is going to be transparent, there will be control. But if this control is not followed by a system that these guys should take from ERP, when every pay-per-piece employee realizes that if they made the plan, they will get an additional bonus, and if not, then no bonus. This system was implemented in the Komsomolsk-on-the-Amur plant, and expensive equipment is utilized by 75% there. But the question is, should the system by Galactica replace the currently existing system in Komsomolsk-on-Amur? Of course not. So the ministry's task is introducing these GOST standards or other standards so that systems complement each other, so that if I buy a packaged solution, I don't want it to replace everything I've previously had. It should all be working together, and the government should stimulate this approach, a certain set of digital platforms and software, and having them will ensure the government support for this company, enabling further development. Otherwise, I will not accept a delivery from you, from my vendor, if it's not provided in a certain way. And if the vendor says, these are excessive requirements, I'll say, no, these are government rules, goodbye. And government says, yes, we've implemented these rules and they will enforce them. And then corporate dispute, instead of trying to move costs from one company to another, will move to another level. These are still, there are going to be two personalities, company manager and production manager, holding manager, and individual company manager. So if we do not see these individual people in this system, if we don't see personalities, we will not achieve anything. Next item, shifting to a market model of production organization. But how is it possible if we don't have a market? We don't have a market. Maybe I'm not sure it's a bad thing. A company survives and it creates a big mother company and a series of small companies around it. But when the market is narrow, why should we create artificial competition? There is only one task for the government, and I support it. We are going to introduce changes for large companies, 70 by 30. So there will be two winners in the competition. So even because if I haven't won the tender, it doesn't make sense for me to have expensive equipment or qualified personnel. And who knows if I will win next year. So this format 70 by 30 for public purchasing makes sure we have two vendors, and we put a stop to large companies assimilating small companies and then selling them. And GOST standards create natural conditions for that. The second company that received 30% of the contract realizes that if the first vendor is lagging behind the schedule or introducing significant changes to the contract, then the second vendor can get another portion of this order, and then without these numbers, they will not be able to ramp up the production quickly. So they will be interested in this digital manufacturing just to work properly. So, for example, now Airbus knows that they will have to buy our fixtures in terms of our own airplanes manufacturing. So as for 70 to 30 ratio, we cannot move to the market model, but at least we can move to a competitive model in a way, at least in Galactica group, improving flexibility of process chains. That's the hardest question. Let me repeat once again. You already know that if we're talking about the defense industry, and Dennis was talking about it, the plant manager of the defense industry is a person who needs their own plating shop, mechanical shop, and so on. And they will never share even a part of the order, even with the companies within the same holding. And I agree with Denis and Anton here. The government has to play a role here. We need to kill this approach. That's why we need to enter these capacities into circulation, and that's why we need ERP systems. We need to understand what is the share of inefficient shops in the cost structure, how much this company pays as social burden and so on. And it's very important for us to improve productivity per hectare, per square meter of space, and only such systems should be can really give us reliable feedback, because we can talk about financial turnover, financial instruments. Of course, the industry needs special banks, but what can they use as a collateral? Only the land and some equipment, but in this respect, regions are creating obstacles for us. It should be actually the government's function, because these are government-owned companies, so we can assess the collateral value as if the government was making a decision of shifting the land to other legal uses, because, as you know, land banks already tried to help us improve production, and I hope this time it is going to work. So I think that I have already said the main trend, so if you give me your ideas or information, I will be very grateful. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, if you have opinions or questions. Everyone is silent. Okay, Oleg. To continue the issue of Sberbank, the main idea is that they have they are earning on this application, not in the moment of its development, and the cost of its development is not bound on the client, on the customer. Maybe you also change the model of earning on software. Moscow TSNI Center, the institute at the Department of INNOPROM Torque. My first director, Eduard Yelamov from the Urals Optical Works, used to say that the works begin from the toilet, and nothing has changed. For 11 years, I've been working here and in Novosibirsk region on producing military products, and in Moscow on technologically complex companies. And I'm assured that everything depends on people down there who works in production shops. So implementation of any software has been mentioned that there should be leaders of these processes, because the workers, they are just making details. But if we are looking at the statistics of non-mechanized types of work, we will come to the practice which exists there, the culture of work, of production work. So we can speak about the price reduction and think of some beautiful marketing schemes of implementation of various systems, beginning from CAD and ending by the electronic management, systems which are there in many defense companies as well. But each production site needs to have a leader. Well, absolutely agree with this. Regions are going to fight us. What is digitalization? Is the reduction of work power or outsource in the best case. It's the income tax for the region. It's the employment program. We need to employ these people. If before there was a plan to let them on pension, now we have to provide them jobs, and the transfer to the digital modeling and digital construction, and including the digital design, it reduces the time of working. It does not reduce the time of the work. It increases the work time, and the correctly modeled production allows reduction the costs and the machine time. But I need to have not the designer map transferred to the digital production. I must apologize that I propagate your competitors, but the assembly model of the airplane is very, very different from the designer model, and there are some violations of the state standard, because the standards are outdated. They are from the 70s of the last century. Mr. Rakhmanov said that PLM won't work without printouts, no 3D systems. We have quite a number of toppers for the discussion here, to be discussed here. Thank you. I want to thank the company Galactica, although they are enforcing but at least they are looking for some ways to reduce these obstacles. Thank you. Grань from Smolensk. We are working in mechanical processing. I've been to Switzerland several times, and I was watching the work of the companies on digitalization. For them, it's like breathing, because it's a necessary system. And there are hundreds and thousands of small companies, and we are trying to digitize the large state corporation, and we are generating the chaos, unfortunately. My question is how interested you are in digitalization of small businesses. It's 100% interesting. It's a very good idea. We need to stimulate not the digitalization of large and complex corporation, but to make box solutions for small businesses and pay them from the governmental money for being able to sell it easier to you. Excuse me for my examples from Sukhoi Superjet, because if we are not able to create digital models in the coming couple of years, well, we won't be able, even the final product in, well, hardware, it becomes a service. It's not a product. It's the main transformation which is going to grow into the digital money, and everything is based on money. I had in the period from 2003 to 2005, 2,000 of orphans, and we did some research there. Russian child, an orphan, well, he costs the government several times more than his equal somewhere in Europe, in Switzerland, for instance. And digitalization allows to make obvious the creativity of a child already on in early ages. And my foreign friends believe that in the coming 5 years, we will be able to transfer emotional intellect into our market, make it a service, and it is somewhere in shares, then 2 or 3 times we will be able to raise our capitalization and engineering industries and processing companies. It's a correct idea, and we will change the programs. I will put it into the document immediately, what you say. It's my personal attitude. I must apologize. Hello, my name is Arthur. I'm from Ufa. We are a tool building company. The приборостроительный plant from Ufa. I know you well. We have the problem. In November, normally, we start prognosing our plan. We get the plans from the top, and there is our forecast. But we do not know how much capacities, what kind of capacities we will need in the next year. When we get the order somewhere in the end of the year, and we need much more time to prepare it, and we don't know how to do it. And you have not yet purchased the design bureau, and well, you have not any funds planned for the next year. How do we solve this problem? We want to have a normal plan. We need to have enough time to develop everything for the production. I am afraid to be very sincere. I have 7 kids, and I have to grow them, still raise them. I won't answer you, but certainly you need to work well, without jokes. Yuri Borisov is propagating a very important thing, for which is also important for you, for your company. there should be a hidden ideology of advanced supplies. Let me again take an aircraft example. Before we Bombardier, for instance, is now killing the market, so Airbus is buying it. The same is done by Boeing, Embraer. But first, they have invested into the service center. They have installed tools there and substitute blocks. And only after they started producing an plane, and we have it vice versa. We have to turn this paradigm, what Credit is fighting for as well. Tool builders say, let us provide the necessary tools for all your production line, and we will free the capacities. It's very important for us to understand that our costs will be paid, will be covered in the end. There are two nuances. First, how it's going to be paid when the head office have not yet closed the contract according to our law 275. The second story is when there is an advanced supply. I do not have a time for getting the turnover money. We need to set a task to our banks for them to provide the advance loans. And the interest rates on these loans have to be covered by INNOPROM Torque, and we have to solve this task up to the end of this year. So, digital industry is very, very important here as well. I won't pay a single kopeck until I see a business model from you, because you tell us we want it, pay for it. And we are not going to continue this blackmail. We are going to fight with you. We need your well-developed business plan. Okay? Will you give it this information to your managers? Well, you will have to live with them. May I ask you the second question? We also have some invited experts, and as soon as the format is changed, then we are about already to finalize our discussion. I would like to give the floor to Denis Savinkov, the Deputy Director of Energomash. 3 minutes to you.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I will be very brief. I would like to familiarize you with the project of automation and even digitization of the rocket building industry, specifically rocket engine manufacturing that we are now doing within Roscosmos State Corporation. And since I only have 3 minutes, Energomash, my name is Denis Savinkov, Deputy Director General for IT Development. It's a managing company of rocket engine manufacturing. All rocket engine manufacturing for our space is united into a sub-holding. There are seven production venues, 10 locations. You can skip it, everyone knows that. So we make engines for satellites. Skip the advertising, skip the promo. I'll call your manager. I'll tell him you said everything. Okay, so the space is ours, and so on and so forth. You know that all piloted. I'm going to start telling true things about you and your problems. Skip this. Okay, we are skipping it. So the approach. The new industrial revolution, Industry 4.0, is our goal, our flagship. Not just automation, not just building IT into the existing processes, but creating a new ecosystem, vertical integration from the industry from Roscosmos State Corporation to the digital workplace, plus horizontal integration from R&D institutions and new product development to the commissioning. In this process, products by Galactica play an important role. Why am I here? Because I want to tell you what we are doing right now. In 2016, we launched a system of implementing ERP plus MES software by Galactica, and currently we have already put into operation 5 out of 15 dimensions, and we're also going to finish with the other 10 by the end of this year. That's the goal. In 2016, we adopted the 2020 strategy, and we identified the target landscape where vertical integration from machines from the field level is included up to the topmost level, and the whole cycle from R&D to recycling. And the yellow highlight for these 2 blocks are solutions by Galactica. We have already implemented some of them. We are open to the market. We are ready to showcase everything we are doing. You are welcome to come, and we will show you what we are doing, and I can show and tell you everything. We are not concealing anything. What about the financial savings? Have you calculated that? We have project management is the main tool for implementing new engines or new systems. Money. 280 million a year savings from ERP system. What about investment? You need to compare the return with the investment. I cannot say. It's a commercial secret. I agree. Cannot argue with that one. What about the payback period? Then you can quickly calculate the investment, can't you? You can look it up and tell us. He's right. A presentation is one thing, and we can show and see their processes, but you cannot disclose this information. I'm sorry. Reducing the product's lead cycle from 36 to 14 months, reducing inventory at the warehouses, and personnel optimization, and also using new equipment. Yes, the whole product's life cycle. Yes, correct. We were talking about small things. So if small companies buy this equipment, even if they actually pay for that, it's an important example for you, Denis, because you finished this cycle with recycling, because we need to have a recycling model, and there are many things that can be reused after the recycling. But it's important whether you are ready to monitor the life cycle of parts from private vendors. Yes, I'll answer your previous question. What should be done to make digital technologies a necessity? Roscosmos has already said that it's an issue of survival. This industry is facing some great problems. Plants and there are some excessive plants and products that the market does not need. They are inefficient and they are not able to adapt to the market. And at the moment, mass media are talking a lot about the space. It's no longer a dream or a romantical enterprise. It's all about money now. Space is a business. So companies that don't meet market needs needs will not survive. And working on the Ministry of Defense means a couple of launches per year. The industry was created at a different scale and it has different capabilities. 4 years ago, we were #1 in the world by the number of launches. We make the best rocket engines in the world. We have something to lose and we don't want to lose it. It's all about survival. This is my last slide. I skipped a lot. Let me just say that we understand that data is the new oil and digital technologies are the new paper. And I can vouchsafe that there will be no paper in 2025. We are no longer use parchment, we're using paper. Digital technologies are the new money. Digital technologies are life. Out of 15 signatures, we have already collected 14 out of 15 signatures for moving the rocket engine into a 3D original. Let me finish at that. I believe in it, and I am calling on you to understand that digital technologies are life. It's about survival, and you will not stay in the market if you don't shift to it. Thank you. And one more minute each, please. Mr. Lepechin, head of group and partner on digital risk managers, KPMG group in CIS and Russia. I'm sorry, but you only have 1 minute.
Thank you. I will try to make in 1 minute, but I do not promise you. I'm not going to tell about the technologies, but about what hinders us based on our practical practices, and hinders us to get the final result to the customer. And it's something which cannot be controlled by the system integrators. It's under control only of the company or only of the customer itself. The first thing is the launching of certain digital initiatives in order to optimize certain processes and make them more effective. The second approach is to transform the business as a whole. Unfortunately, the first approach dominates, and if we pay attention to the capitalization of the most expensive companies on the market, then we will see that all of them recently, whether completely had transformed their business models or substantially transformed them. The first approach is not that the first approach will let you become a leader. It will not even let you approach the leading leaders, and because in the basis is not technologies but humans. If in the company, in its leadership, there is no understanding that the company itself needs to implement the changes within itself, then this company will sooner or later die, or somebody will do it from outside. Unfortunately, I do not have time, but anyway, I try to give you an example of a sabotage which may take place on sites. Here in Russia, we have implemented the cycle of effective analytics on a chemical plant. On the place of the manager, I would also do the same. I don't know anything about this box. I don't know what kind of risks it carries. So I will switch it off. There is no production culture or management culture within our companies. If there is no management culture in our companies, then the costs on implementation of various things will be more than the effect of these systems. How to show people that it's useful. One of the ways is to see what structural changes within the business, whether it's state-owned or a private business, should be implemented, whether the company implements an office of digital transformation. It is necessary for implementation of big cross-national initiatives. It may be separate structural segments or matrix structures or whatever. This structure for this transition period has to build an ecosystem on the level of the company, the digital ecosystem, whether the company is ready to introduce the role of digitalization director. The quality this person should possess should be progressively thinking, creative, and an absolutely perfect manager or ideal nurse or whatever. There are no such people. Every business has to find a person for itself, for its own situation. Where these directors should be placed in the structure of management, it depends on the needs of a certain company, but the effect of this when it's introduced from top downwards is a demonstration of how seriously the company thinks of the new digital ages. The example from our practical experience when the digital transformation was put in by a largest company in the gas and oil sector, and it was initiated by a vice president who was very, very far from the technologies. He is a strategist, but at a certain moment he realized that it should be done, and he is a sponsor on the level of the company. And when he had a strategic session, he invited all the general managers of all the companies from over Russia, and the strategic session was held during 2 days, and you must have seen how the attitudes of these people has changed. The traditionalists, those opponents, strictest opponents, those older people who were not grown on iPads, they became the most effective and efficient supporters of this strategy and technology. If we do not take steps to change the corporate culture and make it strong and institutionalize it on the all levels of your company, then there are no chances for this business. This is all in principle. And the floor is given to Denis Kasimov, the General Director of Clover Group. I will need only 30 seconds. All these talks were wonderful about digitalization, etc., but me, as the person who implements the predictive analytics, well, I do not need the presentation. I will just use 30 seconds. We need to solve the problems of specific people. When we come to a company, some company, and we say that we can prognose the technical condition of certain equipment, well, we come to a chief engineer. Reliability of his equipment is the biggest problem of this man, and we have to solve this problem for him. We come to another company, to the chief technologist, and he needs to solve the problem of rhythm of the production. Here, we do not need to solve the technology of the company. We need to solve the problems, specific problems of specific people in the production site. And maybe the best example I have is, well, some time ago, we did predictive analytics for locomotives, and the diagnostics there working in depot, they are men who have been doing this for 30 years. we came to these guys and we placed a bottle of vodka on the desk on the table, and we said, "Well, guys, we're going to digitalize you." Suddenly, we didn't use these words. I asked them, "Please, what is your most acute point? What aches?" Well, we spent 3 hours for the analysis of one section of locomotive, and we do not want to spend that much time. They have only these problems. They don't want to be sacked. They want to continue their work. But on the other hand, they don't want to work. And we, it may be a paradox, but with our solution, we provided that they were not sacked because they are involved in other things nowadays, because they can do only in 30 seconds analyze the problems of the equipment. And secondly, they are doing other things. Their experience, their knowledge, they use now to form new algorithms, new traditions, in order to make these locomotives have a better quality life. So you have to talk to these people, not only to top managers, but also go to the fields directly. This is the secret, and that's it. Thank you, Denis.
I had this idea when I listened to him. I was at Safran near Paris. It only has less than 1% of our parts, but they installed airplane engines and they're using a conveyor to manufacture them. They're using augmented reality and cameras, and so the workers are working on that. And it seemed that something was wrong. I thought that, what's wrong? Americans gave them millions to invest in it, but the digital key, that's self-programming, workers are not even touching that, so they are starting to operate it, and then the digital key controls the system control, connects with that, and then I realized what I, as a Russian person with lots of other nationalities in me, what I disliked. People are utilized as some biological resource, a kind of drive for all these smart stuff to press the button and so on. And I realized that people are going to start making mistakes, and the Russian person will certainly sabotage that. And we argued a lot with Vladimir on that, and I think that we need to see the intellect in our own workers. We should do that. Unless we see this in them and we simply fire them or replace them with machines. And as the minister said yesterday, I'm very proud of our leader. I'm not saying it so that you could report it to them. Anyway, we know each other very well, and I wanted to say that it has to be a public agreement with those engineers that are currently offended, underfunded, and stressed and emotional. And they think they don't have self-fulfillment. The only thing I want to argue with is we are lying when we are talking about Russian laziness, or the fact that Russian people don't want to work. Russian people want to be happy. They want to work. Russian people are not always able to answer the question why they are doing something. So that's why the Russian people can suffer for a long time, and then they don't understand what they're doing. Actually, the answer to the question why is the most complicated one for the Russian person. And I think that our mission that we need to see in this digitization, because how very intellectual and smart people have assembled here. Thank you for your support. But we only have one way. We must set the rules for ourselves. So even machine learning and all other machine tools, let's not call it artificial intelligence. It's not artificial intelligence. It's an algorithm, a recurrent link, and more algorithms. It is an assistant to an intellectual worker. It's simply an assistant to make people's life happy. They don't want to work because they think their work is dumb. You said they didn't want to work. They don't want to lose the job and don't want to work. They don't want to work this way, and that's a problem of a Russian management. A nation that cannot answer the question why they came to this hall today. And I didn't know either. Anton just brought me. That's why we found the smart work. We try to model it, but we are very poor organizers. So if Anton, Denis, and Vladimir, they will also finish, and I will say a few more words, because we are very poor managers, all of us, even the best of us. Are far worse than a competitor. We are great creators, and over the past 5 years we had this challenge. Are we able to admit our disadvantages instead of yelling that we are the best and use our advantages? Excuse me, but the Russian national team is a great example for us. That's why my voice is my throat is sore. They stopped thinking of themselves as great football players. I'm not sure what emotions they had or what the trainer told them, but it was a great example of the fact that we are using emotional intelligence instead of professionalism, and we did it confidently, and we should do the same with the digital technologies. You shouldn't think that we are going to get better than Siemens or Dassault. I've been asking Dietrich Müller to share the code for many years, and I know he won't, and he knows he won't, but he feels that I'm getting more and more strict, and in 5 years I will just say not localizing manufacturing, then goodbye, or you can provide internet security. And they are very much afraid of Kaspersky. So I suggest the same to you. So thank you very much for this wonderful communication over this hour and a half. I'm very open if you have any ideas. There we have this acting director of IT department in the Ministry of Industry. We have wonderful employees, so share your ideas, send them to us. We will try to combine them, and we will try to create rules that will answer the question why, simply and clearly, on a single page. Why and how. Thank you very much. Thank you, Oleg. Colleagues, we are not yet finished. One moment, please. We have the last expert opinion for today. Vadim Kulikov, Deputy Director General, Agency for Strategic Development. Vadim, the floor is yours. Oleg has left, so we can now relax and talk about business. I think we have no time, so let us not show any slides. I just wanted to draw your attention, dear colleagues, to the tool we started using recently as the Agency for Strategic Initiative, the so-called technological corridor. So how we at the Ministry of Industry and Trade and at the government of the Russian Federation, we have already discussed the grassroots level workers and vodka, but I think that our ingenuity can actually build on the upper level, at the upper level as well. Our latest project that we are now finalizing together with Автодор Corporation, that initiated and acted as a customer for this request, implementing free flow in the country, charging smooth charging of money, for example, on highways. And by the way, we are now working on access to vehicles. So free flow is fine, but how is it connected with digital transformation? Okay, we used to take money in cash. There were workers who manually took money on this highways, but now we are setting the rule, and we hope that it will be established by the governmental decree. It will be prohibited to submit projects to a state expert evaluation service where payment procedures will involve barriers, and a few years later it will not be possible to commission a road, and a road construction is a lot of money, and it's and this means we are creating the market for smooth charges. It means we have a market for GLONASS as well. By the way, commercial vehicles must use the GLONASS navigation system, so we are going to have total coverage over 2019, and many companies like Delaware Lini Carrier Service have already installed it for their own benefit. And by creating this demand and niches and these technological corridors, of course, as the Agency for Strategic Development, we require 75% plus localization. We've agreed with Micron, Angstrom, and so on that they will make chips for this recognition, and Moscow region purchased cameras for cameras that are measuring vehicle speed for billions of rubles, but they are not made in Russia. We asked this question, and they said, okay, the vendor said, okay, we won this tender, but we don't know if we will win the next one. So why don't you include the requirements of localization? But how can we do that? Schwabe is offering for 1,200,000, and Chinese ones are much cheaper. Let Schwabe participate and win the tender. I'm asking why Schwabe cannot manufacture in Russia. There is no sustainable demand. So creating demand through technological corridors is a cool tool. We've already launched it in the pilot mode, and we can use it. The second thing we are actively developing with the Ministry of Industry and Trade is technological compliance and benchmarking. On Monday, we had a big meeting of two vice prime ministers about funding certain projects and providing preferences to them, and we're saying, okay, we are providing some incentives to some companies but not to others. So other companies that don't get subsidized loans are paying 12% or 15 or 17% interest rate to Sberbank. So how do you decide? It's actually important to do benchmarking. We need to realize that it's really a technology that's shifting us to the new level. That's why we are helping them. By the way, their slogan of funding something like the bank about a high level of processing. You shouldn't assist high levels of processing. You shouldn't give money to airplane builders or assemblers at subsidized condition. Give money to the vendors, to their supply chain, because blades that they manufacture can be installed not only on MS-21 but also on a gas turbine or something else. You shouldn't be funding high processing industries. And mining and oil industry is also doing great, well, relatively great, but still they somehow learned to survive. But this whole long supply chain, that's what you need to support. As for recommendations, I suggest our colleagues from Galactica that maybe we hold a joint meeting with the Ministry of Industry and Trade and we look at solutions that currently exist for production program and cooperation management. For example, Introvision by Eurochem. We don't have any representatives here, do we? This is a system that works currently in 35 countries, and their latest success was that together with McKinsey, they sold the BSF system to Belgium. I don't know how much BSF got, but they sold this system, and now Sibur has also implemented it. And it's not Galactica, there will never be Galactica, but they created these top-level solutions that I think it makes change to look at and cooperate on. You've probably heard about Professor Chibis of New York Times wrote about it as a great cyber professional. But for the small business, and there were questions about that here. And by the way, Introvision, I think, is a Skolkovo resident. I hope it's not a problem that I'm advertising your competitors in the good sense of the word. I think we all need to create these solutions together, a partnership in innovations and technology. What do you think, Anton? I don't think they are our competitors. They are helping us become stronger. So thank you. And now let me give the final word to Mr. Dozhdov. Let's just agree on the date. Let's make it on the 20th. Vadim, acting director of IT department. Just one sentence. We are now creating a series of strategic program shaping documents, and what we don't want to do is creating not required strategies oriented at not needed products. And the experience of Galactica is very helpful for us, as is your experience. We invite you to participate actively. It's going to be very useful for you. We operate almost 24/7. Our contact information is provided at the Ministry of Industry and Trade's stand. Thank you. Thank you, Vladimir. Let's give a round of applause to the speakers and to each other. Thank you.